Sure thing, boss, I will follow the GPS. I drive a concrete truck. We deliver ready-mix concrete throughout a fairly large area. Keep in mind concrete has a shelf life of 90 minutes once water mixes with the cement. This is very important on spec jobs. Our company uses a routing and tracking system I will call the terrible system. If there is a good route or less than good route, it chooses the worst route of all routes possible. After working with it a short time, this was noted. During training, new drivers are told to use it for final part of route only. Problem is every time one doesn't follow a route, an alert is sent to management. Early in using terrible system, managers found a way to turn off these alerts. New manager starts. After a year, he brings up in meetings drivers are not following terrible system routing. Multiple times we tell him it gives us the worst and longest routes. He doesn't listen. After 6 months, he states drivers will be written up if we continue to not follow terrible system routing. Drivers don't listen. A few days after this pronouncement, a fellow driver is written up. This is talked about. Cue malicious compliance. Next day on my second load, I have a load to a location I had before. It is 15 miles east of the pant and then a 10 miles north leg. Following that route takes about 45 minutes or less. We had been going to this job site for 3 months by this time and knew terrible system gave a much longer route. I was first truck of 4 and noted on the radio we needed to follow terrible system route as directed. Off I go. Route it takes me is southeast 13 miles. North on Interstate Highway 35 miles. Including a chicken coop. Way station for non-truck drivers. Trucks are chronically overweight. For interstate. East through a large metro area for 20 miles followed by last leg south of about 15 miles. Takes 125 minutes for me. Terrible system gave estimated travel time of 140 minutes, so I did well. I arrive and I'm timed out. Rejected, and that costs company $1,000 for the concrete, not to mention 20 gallons of fuel I burned. Second and third truck are the same. Fourth truck was stopped at Chicken Coo and company had a $500 fine. Customer is pissed. Calls manager screaming. Manager asked to talk to me. I tell him we followed the terrible system routing as directed and he can check that easily. Next day in break room is sign posted stating drivers are to use professional discretion in choosing best, most expeditious route to jobs. Nothing like a huge hit to the pocketbook to get their attention. Common sense means nothing until it bites someone in the coin purse. Well done. Sometimes a GPS doesn't know certain things that are critical for truck drivers. As an example, outside of Syracuse, NY, there is a road along the lake, Onondaga Lake Parkway, that has a low clearance bridge. That road happens to be the fastest way to get from the highway to the suburb of Liverpool. But it has a low clearance bridge. There are signs everywhere that trucks should take a different route. The signs post the low clearance. Sometimes drivers decide to disregard the signs and they take the shortcut. Well, that low clearance bridge is 10 feet 9 inches. It's an actively used railroad bridge. And it's not going anywhere. So about 3 to 4 times a year when I was growing up, a truck would get stuck. I can't help but wonder how often drivers had instructions to take that road no matter what, because it was shorter. Gotta love how manager couldn't even face your team to rectify their mistake. Poor leadership. What was the fine about? Holy cow. I would love to know if the manager got into any hot water with his higher-ups. I would keep doing this until other drivers' write-up disappears. If the write-up isn't stricken from your fellow driver's record, everyone should continue following terrible system, just in case, cause no one wants any additional write-ups. Of course, winking face. Haven't used any other GPS than what's available in my phone for ages. But back then, the GPSs we used could be configured for different priorities. Fastest route, nearest route, and a few others I don't remember. We figured this out when we were driving several vans between A and B and got very different route suggestions, some which were quite awful. Yes, they all had the same GPS model. Maybe this is common knowledge. But if not, might be worth looking into? A well-working GPS is nice to have. I love it. I worked for a grocery store where the owner came in rarely. He came in one time screaming at me, "Th store is cluttered and hurting sales." We were in a record sales period. Had me pull all the displays, then yelled at me at the end of the week when sales really did suffer. If management had their shit together to begin with, the first few times the software gave a crap job, ruining route would also have been the last. It would have included a strongly worded call to the software vendor about selling software that didn't perform as advertised, coupled with a demand for refund. If the refund weren't forthcoming, it would have escalated to a lawsuit to recover costs of the software plus ruined jobs. Sounds like you'll be needing a raise for your skills of professional discretion. Trusting you guys would have been easier, cheaper, and better for business. Ego is costly. What does it mean that he stopped at a chicken coop? It's chicken coop. Unless you're talking about a collective overthrow by the poultry and animal farm. Tears of joy. Otherwise. Great post. Up. Had to mention this after a commenter repeated the phrase, chicken coup, sorry, not sorry. As a counter to this, in my city a mixer just wrote itself off on a bridge because they decided to follow Google Maps. Which doesn't know how tall they are. And neither did they. But yeah, it's much easier to memorize the 3 places you can't go in your zone than to take the longest way every single time. The scary thing is the ambulances in my town use the same awful GPS that I had to use for truck driving. At that point I would have demanded a raise now that professional experience was to be involved in choosing the best, most expeditious route to the job since the company understood the cost involved. Fuck that stupid manager. Use the terrible system's time as a default time required to get to sites as leverage for that pay raise. I wish Google had a truck mode where you can enter your height and it avoids low bridges and tight streets. If terrible system tells you that the trip will take 140 minutes, but you know your cement is bad in 90, why make the trip? Sorry boss. We can't serve that customer because we can't make that trip in time. New manager does not know what he is talking about. Once my boss talked to me about my route because he thought it wasn't efficient. But he was nice about it and listened. I explained the reason I went that way was because the GPS was way off and based on the actual job location I had that day that was the quickest route. He's never questioned my navigation since.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Eracast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.